I have been involved with publishing games for about 25 years. And I've published games on Nintendo consoles when they were still using cartridges. I've published games on CD-ROM. I was one of the first to do digital game publishing when I was with Real Arcade. But with all of that experience in publishing, one of the most challenging things that I've had to think about over the course of the last 4 or 5 years is how publishing can be done in the context of free-to-play service-based games. It's a very, very different business model, and it's a very different set of services, and there's a tremendously different power structure between the publisher and the developer. And I think some of you may have experienced that if you happen to have gone to the publisher panel at Casual Connect Seattle earlier this year, where Jussi Lakonen from EveryPlay just basically tore a big hole in all of the publishing managers from the big publishers like EA and Sony because they didn't have any of the answers to any of the questions that he had related to how publishing should be done with free-to-play games. Now our next speaker, Joel Breton, runs 505 Games, which is a publisher that is focused on free-to-play games, and I'm eager to hear what your thoughts are as to how to make those publishing relationships work. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Joel, and he'll tell us how.
Okay, thanks, David. Yeah, I actually missed the Seattle conference because I was out in London, and I heard about Juicy's event there, which probably was one of the most exciting panels of the show. So, yeah, so I was kind of sad that I missed it, but I thought, well, maybe I should put a presentation together to basically answer a lot of the questions that Juicy brought up, like how are publishers relevant in the free-to-play space? Because I firmly believe that they do. So I put this little presentation together and hopefully can answer some of those questions. So just briefly, let me give an introduction of who I am, my background, and why I'm here talking on this topic, because I think that'll help set the stage a little bit. So I'm a veteran game developer. I've been making games since the Sega Genesis days. Put out games like Sonic and Knuckles and Virtua Fighter back on the Sega Genesis, even the Sega Saturn. So I've been making games for quite a while. And some of the games I've been lucky enough to work on is sort of Duke Nukem, Unreal. I was working with Epic as their producer to create the first version of Unreal, the first Unreal Engine, which has gone on to really become the standard, sort of engine environment to create console and AAA PC games. So I've worked both as a developer and a publisher throughout my career, so I actually know both sides of that coin. And that's why I wanted to put this presentation together to talk about what developers need to succeed, what publishers need to succeed, and then of course how those two can get together to really leverage and create hits in the marketplace, which is clearly what everyone is here to do. It's a hit-driven business, and if you can't create hits, you're probably going to go home. And so, I'm also a professor of free-to-play game design at the Games Academy in San Francisco, and I speak there about mostly compulsion loops, which is the very beating heart of successful free-to-play games. But I'm not going to get into that too much. That's a whole other topic for another presentation. And so currently I am working at 505 Games based in London, and we're building out this free-to-play business unit. And 505 Games, for those of you that haven't heard of us, it's about a 20-year-old games publisher based in Milan, Italy. And it's a top 10 console retail publisher in the European markets, and expanding into US right now. A little smaller footprint in the US, obviously. I've joined the company just this year to build the free-to-play business unit, and that's what I'm focused on. We're building a portfolio of cross-platform free-to-play games, mostly multiplayer, but for sure have social interaction, which is the key to success in this market. So with that, let me just give you a quick breakdown, the agenda of what I'm going to speak about here. Just a quick market overview. I'm sure many of you have heard of free-to-play gaming by now, and so I won't spend too much time there, but I will give some interesting data that we've been able to pick up on the marketplace. And then I'm going to just go right into, developers' dreams, like what's the best case scenario for developers in this market, and then switch to the other side of the coin, which is publishers, what publishers need to succeed and what we're looking for in development teams and talent. And then just describe the perfect matchup where everyone focuses on their strengths, right? So the developers get to create hits, and the publishers get to put money to work on good, strong bets with development teams, much like there is here in the Eastern European market and for sure around the world. And then, show how once that perfect matchup is created, you really can have a situation where everybody wins, because that's the best kind of partnership. If one of the partners wins or takes all of the money or all the revenue from a hit, that's not a good partnership, and it's not going to last. So for a successful partnership, both partners really need to win, and that's my view of the marketplace and what I try to focus on. So there's two screenshots here of just two of the games that we also have created. These are Facebook games. So Fashion Week Live is a major fashion game branded with IMG and with real brands like DKNY and BCBG. And it's the first photorealistic, real brand fashion game that's going up on Facebook, certainly in the free-to-play market. And we're scaling this up to millions of users right now. So we're very pleased to have this one out in the marketplace. And this is also being done in partnership with a very strong developer called Funcom, based out in Norway, and the development team is in Canada. But 505 Games and Funcom have partnered up to bring this free-to-play game to the marketplace. So that's another of the successes that I can talk about just a bit today. So quick market snapshot, free to play. So again, I've made games since the Sega Genesis all the way through the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and I was actually fortunate enough to move to Russia and create the first console game for the Western markets in Russia, which was Pirates of the Caribbean on the Xbox, with a very good team there in Moscow called Akela. Some of you may have played their games. They're very good at pirate sailing adventures, and we made one of the best ones with them while we were out there. So I know a lot about the retail console business, but I've spent the last sort of 5 years focused on the online, mobile, and social spaces. So I've built up a lot of experience recently in those marketplaces. And what I can tell you is without question that free to play is likely here to stay in the marketplace. Every platform that it has touched, it's just sort of quickly dominated. I think mobile and tablets is the most recent example of that, but many other platforms have also proven to be very successful at monetizing with the free-to-play model. So for instance, social network games, right? So you have on Facebook, and out here you have Kontakty and Odnoklassniki. Free-to-play games work beautifully on those platforms, and so I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. Many people have figured out many publishers and developers have figured out, how to make millions and millions of dollars in microtransactions on the free-to-play business. So it's proven successful for both, the players, the consumers, and also for sure the business people. And MMOs as well as the next market that free has taken over. Many of the MMOs that have come out in the last year, they may have come out with subscription pricing and then quickly switched to free to play, including Star Wars, which was a very, very big MMO, with probably $100 million or more in investment to create it, and they have now decided that their best chance to monetize that game is also free. So free is going to win, and next up is probably the digital download platforms. You may have noticed that Xbox Live Arcade has just shipped its first free game, and I anticipate there will be a stream of those. And once the consumers get their hands on these free games, I think they're going to do very well on the digital platforms. So watch for, PlayStation and XBLA games to probably become predominantly free-to-play over the next year. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I'm certainly interested in finding teams that are interested in, making games in the free-to-play business on those platforms as well. So essentially, the message is for developers and for publishers alike that now is the time to really understand how to succeed in the free-to-play business if you want to get on that ship, because as a market grows, this is the time for new companies to get into that market and grow with the market as it grows. And you've seen many examples out where I'm from in California of very small teams starting up 1 to 2 years ago, and as this market grew, they just exploded with it. And there are several examples of companies that are making more than $1 million in revenue per day in their free-to-play games. So this is clearly a real business that is generating real revenue for teams that are interested in playing in this market. And again, I'll just refer to killer compulsion loops. If you don't know what compulsion loops are, I recommend you do some research, find out what they are, because that is really the key to success. The compulsion loop is what basically drives the users to come back to your game again and again and again. So a simple example of a compulsion loop in a farming sense is you buy your farm, you plant your crops, you wait time, and then you come back and harvest, collect your reward. And then you do this over and over again. So it's things that players do repeatedly in order to generate soft currency rewards. And this is really the factor that addicts people to your games and assures that they come back again and again and again, and gives you the chance to monetize them in the end. So again, if you don't know what compulsion loops are, I'm not going to go into it too much here, but I recommend that you find out how to create killer compulsion loops and make sure that they're at the very heart of your gameplay. So just a quick market snapshot. Something interesting happened last year. Again, this is not probably big news for anyone. This is pretty common knowledge, but I just want to point it out that, for the first time, smartphone sales overtook PC sales last year, and you can see how dramatic this uptake is on the smartphones, and personal computers are sort of chugging along with a little bit of growth. But then this is what's really exciting for me as a game maker and a game developer. If you can see that the projections are that we're going to be having about 2.5 billion new computers, smartphones, and tablets in the marketplace by 2016. So while the curve has been very severe over the last 2 years, it's even going to get more severe over the next 2 and 3 years. So the number of people that are going to have smartphones and tablets to play games on is just going to be phenomenal. I mean, it dwarfs what the Xbox and the PlayStation have ever been able to achieve. And if you add up all the 3 consoles together, with Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony, they're going to be nowhere near as a larger installed base as will be on the mobile and tablets. And as we mentioned previously, the free-to-play has already dominated this platform. And if you look at it here, freemium is already the dominant business model. 93%, the graph in the middle there shows that 93% of the top 100 grossing games in the App Store right now use in-app purchase. And 66% of them are free. So there's a few that are using premium where you pay to download and then you do in-app purchase on top of that. But clearly the microtransaction free-to-play model is dominating this very large market that is booming with the smartphones and tablets. So this is also something that's very important to understand because this is something that publishers and developers need to know, and they need to understand this dynamic when they go into this marketplace. And what this chart shows basically is that 37%, this is a current snapshot of the market, 37% of players don't pay anything in your free-to-play game. 1%, or what we'll call the killer whales up there at the top left-hand side of the chart. And these are people that spend, on average, $60 to $70 in your game, which, if you think about it, is a lot more money than 99 cents if you're doing a paid download. But the numbers are quite small there. Like 700,000 North American gamers this year are in that killer whale category. I happen to be in that killer whale category. I spend a lot of money on games. So I'm in that market, but there's a few 100,000 more people just like me. And what's key for developers and publishers is to find those killer whales. Also find the whales and to find the dolphins. And so it's a bit like fishing, right? And it's challenging to find those folks. And I'll talk in just a little bit about how good publisher-developer partnerships can focus in on finding those guys that are going to monetize and making sure that you're serving them and satisfying them, giving them the content that they want and the unlimited amount of money that they're willing to spend in your game once you've engaged them and once they're having fun. So now quickly, I'm just going to talk about what developers dream about. And again, this comes from the context of what I've experienced as a developer. I've started my own video game companies before and made games with teams, programming, designing them. And so what most developers want, I'll caveat that by saying what most developers want is, they want a cash flow stability. They need a steady stream of cash coming in. And why do they need that? Well, they need that because they have salaries to pay. They have programmers, artists, designers, QA. They have all of these salaries to pay, and so they need cash coming in on a constant basis to cover their overhead. But not only that, but they want to have the ability to break out and create a hit, and then, of course, to have reward for creating that hit. And they want deals, therefore, that don't jack their upside. So basically, deals where the publisher would essentially take all of the potential revenue if a hit is created. Developers need to be interested in and make sure that they have what, essentially a rev share on the back end of the deal. So there's two kind of deals, right? There's the work for hire, where the publisher pays that top line. It gives you the cash flow stability coming in, but then it basically steals your opportunity to really create a lot of money for your team and your studio by not giving you a royalty on the rev share of the revenue that comes in. So for a developer, clearly the best case scenario for a developer is a deal that gives them the money, funds their development costs up front, allows them to take that worry off of their plate, but then also has the ability for them to monetize on the back end of the deal and make sure that they have an interest in the success of the product. So developers and publishers, this relationship is traditionally tricky because there's different goals for the publisher and developer, and so it's tricky to find those exact right deals where the publisher's happy, the developer's happy, and they can both create success at the same time. But the perfect deal then, therefore, is a cash flow positive deal. Lets the developer focus on development themselves and focus on creating hit games, because that's really what developers need to do. They need to create hits. And then, of course, they want to have a breakout potential when they do create the hit, so that they're going to be rewarded, their team's going to be rewarded with bonuses for making that success. So then let's flip over to the other side. So that's from the developer's perspective. Now I'll talk just a bit about the publisher's perspective, which I know a good amount about as well, because I've spent about half of my career on the publisher side. So what a publisher traditionally wants is to create a portfolio of games, right? Publishers have a lot of money. They need to put it to work. So to do that, they're essentially going to make a bunch of games, right? So they're going to take bets. They want to make smart bets, games that they think have the potential to break out and become hits. So in order to do this, they need quality development teams that can deliver on the promise of their original game concepts, right? So I always like to say that in game development, ideas are cheap and execution is expensive. So there's just hundreds and thousands of game ideas that are on paper in concept form, right? And so there's no shortage of those. Those are easy to create. What's very difficult to create is the game that delivers on that original concept, that actually will be fun, will be entertaining, will be engaging. And so that's what the publishers need, is teams that can not only come up with good ideas, but that can deliver on those ideas. Because that's the biggest shortfall for most developers, is they may have had a good idea, good plan, but they couldn't execute on that. And then basically the investment that the publisher puts into that game is lost because they didn't create the hit, they didn't deliver the promise on that. And so therefore publishers are essentially looking for deals that deliver a positive return on investment for them, right? So they invest the money up front to get the game created, and they want to obviously get a return on that. So that's what a publisher, ideal publishing deal is deals that don't harm the bottom line for the publisher. So a perfect deal from the publisher standpoint is, one that puts some of their money to work, because that's what the whole business model is around, creating games. They want to make a strong bet. So for instance, when I look at a game idea on paper before it's turned into a game, I want to see, be able to visualize how this thing is going to be a hit, and then you take a gamble. You're like, okay, let's see if this particular idea, this hidden object game or this match 3 game, let's see if we can get it to deliver on that promise. So let's take a bet on this game, and that's essentially, what the equation is for the publisher. And then, a perfect deal for a publisher also lets them focus on their strengths, which is in the free-to-play market, marketing, distribution, business intelligence, and analytics, analysis, and so that they can create that breakout hit potential. So that's a quick look at the perspective from the developer standpoint, what they're looking for, what the publisher needs to do, and what they're looking for. So what is the sort of perfect connection there, the perfect matchup between the publisher and developer? What does that look like? Well, so for the publisher, it looks like we've got money. Let's put it to work. So let's provide that to the equation. We'll put the funding in. For what else do we have that we can bring to the table here? So on the publishing side, we've got a marketing team, we've got a distribution team, we've got a PR team. Most developers don't really have that, or if they do, it's a pretty small and limited team. So this is something that the publisher, in the perfect world of free-to-play, they can focus on that. And metrics and intelligence. Now this is critical to success in the free-to-play world. So you need to understand, if you're looking for a way to get people to come back to your game every day, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, the way that you do this is you put the game out and you look at where people are getting to in the game, right? So you have analytics metrics hooked up to the game that gives you nice graphs that shows, okay, well, 75% of our people got to level 1. 20% of the people, however, got to level 2. So it looks like we've got a problem in between level 1 and level 2. Let's go look at level 1 and find out why people are getting stuck there, why they're dropping out of the game there, and fix it. And that's the beauty of a live service game, as we're talking about today. The beauty of a live service game is that you can fix it. If you find a problem, especially if it's on the web or on Facebook social networks, you can fix it almost instantly. You say change the tutorial around, suck people into the gameplay a little bit better, and publish a new version that's live, almost instantly. A little different with the App Store. Obviously, you got to go through the submission processes there. But what we're finding on the App Store is that about 10-day lead times to get your new version up. So that's not too bad. That's a lot quicker than it is on the Xbox or the PlayStation, for instance. So if the publisher can focus on marketing, focus on the metrics, because they have a team of people that are sort of investment banker types, and that is critical to success. People that can analyze the graphs and charts, see where things are not working, and then go back to the game team and try to get recommendations for how we can fix the problems that we're seeing in the metrics. For instance, what I can give you some metrics that are of success right now. So for instance, day one retention in your free-to-play game, for it to be successful, you're going to want that to be around a 40% level right now. So if you can get 40% of the people that came into your game today to come back tomorrow, you've got some really nice retention metrics. And then if you take that out to a 7-day period, you're going to want around 20% of the people to still be with your game. And what we've found is that if you can get someone to stay for 7 days, that is to keep returning to your game after a week, that you have a really good chance of keeping them for 2 months. So an engaged user is one that you can keep for a week, and then you have about an 80% chance, the metrics show, of keeping them for 2 months, and that is where you've got your chance to monetize, usually in between the end of the first week and the 8th week. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about with metrics and intelligence. The publisher's very good at that because they have a team of people that can work on that, and then of course let the development team focus on making the game fun, adding the content that's going to keep people coming back again and again. And so another another way that the publisher can, another thing that the publisher brings to the table is usually a platform. So if you've got a multiplayer game, you got your server connection, you've got your data that's stored up on the server for the game, and that's a lot of work. The server piece, the connected nature of the game is a lot of work. So usually a publisher can provide that to the developer to save them having to create this, and that can be a whole, about half of the development time to build the server components, the achievement system, the high score leaderboards and all of that. So in the best case scenario, the publisher could give the developer this piece of technology, the server piece, and let them, again, just focus on the fun part, making the game, making the in-game content, and making sure that that really works. So then in the perfect scenario, the developer, what they can do, what their best case scenario is let the publisher fund development, again, so they have the cash flow coming in. They don't have to have the stress of figuring out where they're going to pay the salaries for their team. So that's good. So that takes that off the table. Developers can then focus on creating the hit game, and again, focusing on the compulsion loop, which I talked about earlier, because if you don't have that at the very heart of your game, the chances of it succeeding is very low. I didn't pull a chart, but basically, the last time I looked at the App Store and went down the top grossing games, of the top 50 grossing games, I could count killer compulsion loops in about 45 of them. So again, it is absolutely critical to success, but that's a long topic, so we'll just keep moving today on this point. And then so the next thing that the developer can do is build on the publisher's platform and save themselves all the effort. It could be if your development cycle is 6 months, for instance, you could cut that in half to like 3 months if you built on top of a publishing platform, and save yourself all of that time and effort to build and engineer that. And it's a totally different skill set than building art and design and level designs. That's a totally different skill set. So you can let the publisher handle that for you and provide that for you, so you don't have to build that competency of building servers, which is not really game development. It's really technology development. And so yeah, if you can find that matchup, really everybody can win. And again, that's the goal, is not for the publisher to only win, developer not to win, or for the developer to have the best end of the bargain, the publisher not to win. That's not going to work. In order for a publishing partnership to break out, both of the developer and publisher have to win. So again, publisher puts capital to work. This is just a quick summary. Publisher puts the capital to work. They play to their strengths of marketing and metrics, and they partner with development teams that can deliver on their original concepts. And then they deploy and scale free-to-play hits to the marketplace. The developer then focuses on hit game production only, builds awesome compulsion loops, and plays to their strength of creating hit games, because that's really what developers are best at. And they build on top of publishing platforms, and then as you notice, both of them do the same thing. They deploy and scale free-to-play hits to the marketplace, but each focusing on, what they're best at. And that is what I would say is the ideal publishing partnership right there. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming. And,
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your publishing company? What kind of games do you publish? What platforms do you work on? And what your business model is?
Yeah, sure. So 505 Games is we're a 20-year-old console games publishing company, and just this year, as we've seen, that market sort of falling down and reducing 10-20% a month, what we've decided to do is to take a lot of the capital that we've built up in the console space, making like Zumba and Sniper Elite version 2, sorry, which is our current console hit. And so we're taking a lot of that money that we're making in the console space and moving it over into the fast-moving, fast-growth market. So we're looking for teams that want to get into this space as well, and that can either have great ideas that they want to come and bring to us to potentially partner with. And if we line up and we think the idea is good, the developer thinks the idea is good, we'll make a deal. And then basically, as I've outlined in this partnership, as long as we think that it's a strong bet, we'll back the developer, again, pay for the fund the development, and make a deal where we're both in the same boat, essentially, where we're both going for the same goal, and we're both going to have a good upside on the back end, if we do create that hit that we're looking for. And as far as genres, I'm looking at all types of genres. I think that free-to-play can work, even in a first-person shooter, for instance. It can work in a match 3 game. It can certainly work in a hidden object game. And the common sort of genres of city building and so forth are already established, that you can make a lot of money in those genres. Another thing that we're doing is we're pursuing. We have a very good licensing team out in Los Angeles that is pursuing licenses with movie studios, musicians, authors, and so we're doing a lot of that. And what we'll be doing as we get these licenses locked in, we'll be looking for teams that are interested in working with us on those games and those concepts. And so we'll probably, there's one that I'm just locking up right now. So I'll find teams that are comfortable in that genre. It's actually going to be a city building game. And so I'll find teams that are comfortable in city building games and have them bid on the production of that and say, okay, here's what we could do, here's what we could imagine doing with that concept, and here's how long it'll take us and how much it'll cost. And then we look at that, and if we agree, then we make a deal and go forward. So cross-platforms, and actually, as I mentioned already, social networks, that's well established, so we'll be there online, so at its own URL, essentially, it can be there. And social networks and web versions are very similar, right? That can almost be the same game, just with different payments. And then mobile and tablets, for sure. Those are already established. And I'm absolutely looking at the console downloadable space, because I think that's about ready to pop this year. And some of the best games, I think, are multiplayer. So I really like real-time and asynchronous multiplayer. I think there's a lot of room to innovate around the battle mechanic, that players, so if you make your kingdom, you build your kingdom, but then you go invade other people's kingdoms. I think there's a lot of room to grow the market in those genres. Yeah. So a cross-platform multiplayer, those are really the keys for us.
Any other questions? I have a ton of questions, but since I would actually spit all those out and it would turn into a contract negotiation, I'm going to limit myself to just one, which is what is the customer acquisition strategy for 505 games? That's typically where people who come into publishing in this space have no plan and therefore no plan.
Yeah. No, so it's pretty simple. So we have what I call, we have a big cannon of cash ready to fire. But we're not going to just fire
cash
that.
cannon.
We have the
I have
cash
one of
cannon.
those.
Yeah, the 505 cash cannon. But the way that this model works, obviously, is you put out the game and you see what the metrics are, right? So obviously, you're not going to spend your marketing budget if it's going to just go out there and be wasted. So the three key performance indicator, or what we call a KPI, are retention and the percentages you have for retention, monetization, obviously, and virality. So those are the three sort of legs of the stool, and you need to have all three of those in pretty good shape before you're ready to really market the game. So we're building out the cross promotion network. So each of our mobile games will have cross promotion ability, and we have, for instance, we have about 12 mobile and tablet free-to-play games that will be launching in the next 6 months. Some of those are very big brands that, again, like we've signed up. Some of them are original IP. So each install that we acquire for those games will be cross-promoted with the other games that are at least in the same target audience demographic, right? So the two, one thing I forgot to mention is that we're really focusing on two core demographics. So one is the casual females. And those are mostly on the social networks, and that's where Fashion Week Live is focused. But we're also looking at the core males market. I think there's a lot of room to grow there, and those are more on maybe the Xbox and PlayStation Network, and for sure on the mobile and tablets and on the web. So to answer your question, we put the game out. We test the KPI. If it's not at our target levels that we would like to see to hit success, we'll tune the game. We'll spend several months working and tuning the game, and once those click in, then we have very large budgets to market the game, acquire the users, get the distribution out there. So that's in a nutshell how it works.
So testing and a big cash cannon and cross promotion. That's not a bad strategy. Anyone else? Questions for Joel at 505? All right. Well, thank you, Joel.
Thanks.